Hello. Just wanted very briefly at the beginning to thank a new subscriber of mine, relatively new subscriber, Ali the All-Star, for his kind words on my Reptiles of the Bakery video and his subscription. I'm sorry I wasn't able to answer properly beneath the video, but as you probably gather, I can't comment on my own videos or on any other. Now that's out of the way, I need to come on to the subject that made the few of you that follow me click on this when you read the title. That amazingly talented embodiment of all that is pustulous and putrescent, Katie Hopkins. What can I say about her? What joke, what facetious remark could I say about the woman that hasn't already been said? What two animals represent Katie Hopkins? Bullocks. How does Katie Hopkins keep making people rich? She keeps winning the derby. What do you call a corpse in a cesspit? Death by Katie Hopkins. What would you call Dame Edna and Katie Hopkins running together? A drag race. Just be grateful that you don't have to wake up and see her lying next to you. Kermit does. I generally ignore her. It's my instinct to ignore her. All those jokes I made earlier, well, okay, I might have come up with them off the top of my head, but don't pretend you hadn't thought of some of it, that she looked like some of the things I just described. She first rose to fame, for those that don't know her, and I'm sure you all do, appearing on the UK version of The Apprentice. She was known for her controversial remarks even then, and for saying amusing things, though personally I always found Simon and Trey far wittier and her rival Christine much sharper. She then became famous outside of The Apprentice and on other reality TV shows for saying facetious and controversial things there, and with the birth of Twitter, you know, spread it out to the world. I generally ignore her, except for the fact that on this occasion she said something somewhat closer to my heart, or rather my brain, namely the subject of the autistic spectrum. Now I'm going to say off the bat that I realise I've never really talked about my being on the spectrum, at least in video form, but when I was able to comment on videos, if you look at my list of favourite videos, you will see that one of the first that I favourited was of a young autistic boy, age 4 or 5, who's reading very fluently from a book on dinosaurs. You'll also see, if you look at my discussion section of YouTube, which I can also no longer comment, not only is the chronology kind of weird, but one of the things that I said was, please befriend that person, you'll be amused by your subsequent conversations with him, and then later I say, and again, suddenly I feel like a kitten with a ball of wool. The reason that I said those things is because a rather unpleasant person had been using various sock puppets to attack people on the spectrum on YouTube, and she'd been thumbing down and disliking videos that were autism related, and we had a very long conversation in our respective PMs, and you know, she said things on there like, don't befriend this person, he has autism. That's what those comments on my discussion board were in response to. And she did it again, and that's why I said, and again. What I'm trying to convey is that I've dealt with autism-hating trolls on the internet before, and I was going to let this one pass. I noticed, incidentally, that Katie Hopkins' remarks on autism didn't generate anything like the same sort of scandal as her remarks on immigrants did, for example. Nobody's called for her to be arrested, not as many videos were made about it. In fact, I think at the time, on the day that she said it, I saw only one. That was a video calling for her to apologise, and I was going to make a video just like this, pretty much pointing out, look, you're not going to get an apology out of her. And then I thought, you know what, why bother? You're giving her what she wants. You don't conceal lies by holding a magnifying glass to Pinocchio. Whatever that means, I can't follow my own metaphors now. I was just going away, and then, you know, today just went by, and I've been busy all day, so I didn't notice, but it seems that not only has another person made a video, but that some online petitioners looking for an apology have risen to over 9,000 now, And a woman in a newspaper article wrote a very heartfelt article about her autistic son and how she felt as though it had personally attacked him, and inviting her along to her support group for autistic children and parents. And then the National Autistic Society had also got involved, inviting her to come and see them. And that's when I thought, okay, real people are involved in this. Maybe not to the scale, like I said, of videos, but still online. The specifics of her comments, incidentally, rose from Twitter, as it always does. There was a documentary about a young girl whose mother was trying to get a diagnosis for her. I believe the thing was narrated by somebody that I actually know, but I shan't swear to it, and I might talk about that later. I'm going to assume that everyone that's clicked on this video has some cursory knowledge of autism. Those that don't, well, both it and also my own story with regard to it is for another video, frankly. In the end, Katie Hopkins is not, as it's sometimes claimed, the human embodiment of Marmite, something one either loves or hates, so much as the human embodiment of Twilight, something we despise not only because it's absurd, mundane, and unrealistic, but because it's become a success precisely because it's absurd, mundane, and unrealistic. And we have allowed that as a society. And it's as a result of this that I almost feel unclean making this video about it to contribute to her absurdity and her rancour, which is why this video is directed not at her so much as those that are trying to get her to change her mind. What are you trying to achieve? Those 9,000 people that are trying to get her to apologise, do you really think it's going to work? You know, the way you change people's minds is not by censoring them. I did not react to her words about immigrants because I want them to drown in the water the way she apparently claimed to. No, I thought that, first of all, no government would ever ploy gunships to deter immigrants, or at least no British government would, unless they were all pirates or terrorists, and these were actually people that were trying to escape from piracy and terrorism, most of them. The reason I didn't want anyone to respond in the way they did and get her arrested was because if you got her arrested under the Race Relations Act, you'd have made her a martyr for those that really are racist and don't like the colour of people's skin, which wasn't her complaint. And although I know there's racial tension, I think it's fair to say that the European Union and arguments over its existence has caused more racial tension than anything she could ever have invented. And now we have this subject of autism. You know, I was almost here with Richard Dawkins when he said something disgusting about Down syndrome children and whether it was moral to keep them alive or something stupid like that. You know, was it said out of spite? No. At best, it was said without much or with no thought at all. At worst, it was just the throes of a man that didn't quite know what to do now that George W. Bush and Osama bin Laden weren't in the newspapers anymore. Katie Hopkins was doing the exact same thing. She didn't know this child, and I understand if the person that she directed her spite towards, her vitriol, if the parents and family of that child felt insulted. Absolutely, I respect their right to protest against her. I have a lot of respect, I think, for that woman that wrote about her son, because in the same way that Katie Hopkins was writing about that little girl that was, her name was Honey, I think, in the documentary, that was screaming, she was typifying her. So this mother was trying to portray her son as a fully rounded individual rather than talking as a group. When you look at people as individuals, which is kind of what Katie Hopkins was doing with this particular child, saying that she deserved military intervention in order to put her right and all the rest of it. I think, okay, well, if she's directing it at that child, it's for the child's parents and their family to, you know, be riled up against. I understand that they might feel appreciative of the 9,000 signatures, and I do also understand the mother that wrote the article that the open day thing wasn't just a sort of open day towards her, it was an open day to people like her. Don't get me wrong, I don't like autism haters, as I've suggested before. I've tangled with them in the past. Particularly in an age where, you know, if you've got Twitter, a few more clicks on Google and you can look up whatever you like. If you can read, there's almost no excuse in the current day and age, if you've got Google, to be ignorant anymore. There really isn't on a subject, because you can. There's one thing that I can agree with Katie Hopkins upon. It is the fact that if you don't know what she reads, stop reading. And that's why, like I said, I almost feel unclean mentioning her. That's why I'm directing it at you, her critics. I mean, you draw attention to her in such ways, and this is why I almost hope this video is the very last one ever made about her. I hate ignorance. I give talks on what it means to be on the autistic spectrum, and I help out children and teenagers with autism. If one person like Katie Hopkins is in my audience when I give a talk, and I can stop that, I've done my job correctly. If I'm working with a child or teenager and I'm talking with the parent and I can make that child go away so that nobody like Katie Hopkins ever believes that it needs military intervention, again, I've done my job correctly. And I do understand that, you know, the National Autistic Society kind of had to say that, because I think if they hadn't said, you know, come and see some real autistic people, a lot of people might have been on their case and said, well, why didn't you respond to her? Because you dignify it with an opinion. You dignify her presence by doing it. It's not a question of feeding the troll. Keep the troll under the bridge where it belongs. Only knock the troll into the river with your horns if you're willing to take it on properly. And you know how you take it on properly? It was Thomas More, wasn't it? The devil, the proud spirit, cannot endure to be mocked. Well, you can try taking her on with banter all you like, but I think she gets enough hate mail on her Twitter, and I say that someone that isn't even a follower of Twitter or her or anything. I think what really needs to happen, she's an attention seeker, right? So you start right there. Don't read The Sun if you don't want to read the papers. I would never even heard about her immigrant thing if somebody hadn't sort of posted it elsewhere. And that's why I don't really... If I had a big audience, you know, I actually probably wouldn't have made this video still, regardless of how I felt about it, because I don't want it to reach that many people. If anyone is thinking about responding to this video, fine. But even if I answer back, I'm not going to make reference to Katie Hopkins. I'm not. This is about giving people who thrive on attention, even if it's negative, and that is her. She's a businesswoman, right? So don't buy her products. That's the best and easiest way that you can damage her. Don't buy her papers. Flip over if you see her channel, or switch different stations if you hear her on the radio. You know, that's the way you damage an attention seeker. Don't give them the attention. They can't function anymore. It's like water and sun to her if she were a plant, a really toxic kind of plant. I understand those 9,000, probably more than 9,000 now, wanted to try to show that they supported Honey, I think that's her name, and her parents, and if it made them feel happy, then fine. Doing it on behalf of them, then fine. And if that's what they wanted, then okay. But if you're doing it for your own satisfaction, if you're doing it because you want an apology, that's what she wants you to do, because she knows that she's got you. Compare her to a bully, you know? If you give a bully too much attention, okay, well, there's two ways. One is that sooner or later they're going to get punched back, and they're never going to do it again. Well, you know, all depends on who takes her on next time, doesn't it? Certainly won't be anyone that has different politics. It certainly is not going to be Russell Brand showing pictures of immigrants in the water as he did. Again, I understand why they did it. They were outraged, but I've said what I reckon should have been the right response. If she'd said, let's kill autistic people as a whole, then fine. Different story. Although, again, you know, the Prime Minister had a son that was autistic before he died, and I know that, you know, she also is on record as saying that Ed Miliband, the leader of the Labour Party, was behaving as though he was on the autistic spectrum, but, you know, So was Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, Napoleon Bonaparte, and arguably Winston Churchill. So what more has she got in her locker, really? And don't be sorry for who you are. Lack of fear is the best weapon you can have against any bully. It really is. I do understand it's hard to ignore when you're being bullied, but she's not. She's just being an idiot. She's saying stuff that she probably only half means. Intelligent enough to know what autism really is. This of the police, so she must know true of our armed forces, that they certainly don't have the facilities anymore with the finance cutting to intervene on children, for goodness sake. She's just acting the fool. Actually, I'm going to address the lady with the autistic son, and anyone that thinks like her, that was hurt on behalf of their child. Any autistic person that read her tweet and was personally hurt by it, if you're young and were hurt, well, I'm sorry to hear it, but I've got to tell you something, my friends. You'll encounter a lot worse than Katie Hopkins as you grow up. That's true even if you're not autistic, but I have to say to any adult or teenager on the autistic spectrum, well, you have encountered worse than Katie Hopkins, so where's your outrage? I think I've said what I had to say. Like I said, you can answer back if you, in the unlikely event that anyone will watch anyone as obscure as me, feel free to answer back, but I'm not gonna, if I do answer, like I said, I'm not going to refer to her again, because I honestly want this to be the last thing that's ever said about her, because all the jokes that could have been made about her I made pretty much at the beginning. What else is there to say about the woman, if she is a woman? Like I said, this almost doesn't count as a Katie Hopkins video because I'm directing it at those that are trying to get the response that she wants out of them. I was going to say, what are you thinking? I do know what you're thinking. You know, you'll want to show your support, but not like this. You can't punish her like this. You can't. And I say that to someone on the autistic spectrum. It may be that I have a thicker skin than some. I don't know. Yes, I think that's about all I wanted to say about her. That's the way you need to see sense. And who knows? Katie Hopkins herself, maybe one day, will have an autistic child by the grace of God. Or her husband's sperm cells, whichever way you want to say it. And then she'll understand. But until that time, talk about it if you like, as I do, about autism. Raise autistic children. Raise them to be lovely, excellent people, as I'm sure they already are, and as you know they already can be and are. Be the autistic person that makes her ashamed if she's capable of shame. She knows that she said that about the autistic girl, but you are nothing like that girl, and even if you were, so what? That's all I need to say. So, thank you, and good night.